Hi guys, it's Nick here from Hidden Valley Bushcraft. Micronavigation for me is the culmination of the knowledge and skills of our ancestral forefathers in the ability to read the natural landscape around us. Okay, so what I'm talking about there is natural navigation mixed with using the reliability of instruments, a compass or a GPS, generally as a confirmation tool, but sometimes you can kind of 50-50 things in. And I'll demonstrate some of those techniques today. Now, I've spoken on a couple of videos about the use of pace beads. Okay, I've got some here, and we'll get into that. In addition to that, we're going to need some base information first before we set off on our journey. So we're going to head over to the landing now. We're going to take a look at some of the instruments we're going to need to set ourselves up. Let's get into it. So this rather interesting looking device here, okay, it's quite an old school one in fact. Okay, it's written on there, it's known as a trundle wheel. Has 1 metric meter marked out on there. And if I place this onto the ground, starting with the meter mark, and I roll it forward, we should start to hear it click. Where this would be particularly applicable and useful to us is in helping us to ascertain and work out how many times our feet or a certain foot strikes the floor over 100 meter distance. Given that, the map I'm going to be using today, we're going to take a look at in just a moment, is all measured out in metric system. So it probably goes without saying that you don't have to go and procure one of these trundle wheels. Just as long as you have a known set distance of 100 meters to work from, that's all you're going to require. Now, for me here in the field today, I'm going to head over to the farmhouse, start from the gate, measure out 100 meters, mark where that is, and then I'm going to line up and start to walk that route, clean fatigue without carrying any equipment to begin with. I'm going to set off with my best foot forward, my right foot forward, and every time my left foot strikes the floor, I will count that as 1. Okay, and I'm predicting my left foot is going to strike the floor somewhere between 60 to 64 times clean fatigue, and that's going to give you your very basic pacings, or your distance over 100 meters. You're gonna start to learn your pacings, so it's quite important. And then as the procedure carries on, we're going to start to add weight, so maybe a day pack or a day ruck, and then you're going to add maybe something that you might live out of for like a week at a time, maybe a Bergen or a very full day sack, and you're going to see probably the pacings go up as you're having to take more strides to achieve that same distance. First things first, let's mark out 100 meters. Okay, so wow, it ended up being pretty much there on the floor. I've marked it with a branch. Okay, so from the gate to where the branch is on the floor is 100 meters. So starting with my feet level against the back of the fence line, I'm going to start off on my right foot. Okay, so when my left foot strikes the ground, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So rather interestingly, the first one I did there was 57 paces to the branch, which is my 100 meter mark. So I'm now going to head back again. Okay, do another 100 meters. Okay, back here at the farm gate, 57 again. Well, 57.5 stride. Let's head back one last time. Okay, that's our third run clean fatigue, and that was 57.5. So I've had 2 at 57.5, 1 at 57. So I could round that up to 58 if I like, or I could just say it's 57. Do you know what? I think I'll stick with 57. What's more of interest is how we move with our pack and with our weight on. So 57 clean fatigue, I'm expecting around 60, 64 with a light day sack on. Let's go find out. So that's 2 readings at 60 and 1 at 59. I'm going to round that up and take 60 as my reading for my day sack, moving around day to day. We're now going to step things up again, and we're going to go to your full packed day sack or Bergen for some, where you might be living out of that thing for multiple days whilst out on the trail. 3 readings, 62, 63 every single time. 57 clean fatigue, 60 mark with the day sack on, 63 okay with something a bit more substantial around the 15 kilo mark, something I'm going to go and live out of a multitude of days. So they're my 3 readings. They work for me. Now I have that information, guys, I can use this. Here we go. What I've got here is I've got a map and I've got a compass, and we're going to talk about each of these respectively. And I'm going to start off by talking about the map. This is a custom made OS Explorer map. Now you can get a multitude of different types of map, okay, under the OS banner. You can get Land Ranger maps, you can get maps that are kind of more geared towards kind of local communities and bits and pieces, and they come in a number of scales, different sizes. That is to say, this one here, if we look closely, says it's a 1 in 25,000 scale. So basically 4 centimeters across is 1 kilometer, okay, 2.5 inches to a mile. What this means is I have a map which is great for navigating here locally in the valley, and you can see one of the lakes here, and it's on a size and a scale that I can work with much more easily. Without further ado, let's look at some of the features on the map. Straight away, the things that jump out at me are these vast blue shapes here, okay? So blue on a map generally, if you're going to see this sort of thing as we look closer, okay, is going to be a lake. There's a lake here and a lake there. Now, one thing my military colleagues will be screaming at me for is never use a finger, because a finger, if you look how wide a finger is and you're trying to point to anything specific, okay, this is useless to me. What I'm going to need is a proper pointer. Now, a proper pointer could be anything. It could even be a little blade of grass, okay, because that's still going to be much more accurate than my great big dirty finger. So if I'm looking at somewhere, I can then say definitively it is this building here or that building there, as opposed to sticking my great finger in and saying it's one of those 5 buildings in there. To help you with all of these features, as we start to see big splodges of green, these kind of red lines running through here, yellows, greens, blues, all kinds of stuff going on, is the key. Okay, so on the right hand side on an OS Explorer map, you have this amazing key, and it's going to give you all the information that you need. Just to pick a few examples, and more importantly to the hikers and campers, especially in the UK, okay, are the footpath markers, which are this small dotted or dashed red green line, and then you have these longer dashed lines which are a bridleway, so taking a horse onto somewhere like that. Then you have these mixed ones which are a byway open to all traffic, and then you have these ones where they're not so much of a little green cross, they're alternate. They're aligned with an alternate nubbin sticking out, okay, and that is restricted byway, not for use by mechanically propelled vehicles. There's reasons for all this stuff. You've got to remember that Britain is an absolute patchwork quilt of different landowners, different businesses, industrial complexes, and therefore that needs to be respected. You can't just go willy-nilly anywhere you like. It's just a patchwork quilt of tiny little footpaths with a multitude of little turn-off points and lots of information. So one of the most important things you could learn about is contours. What they do is they give us the shape of the landscape itself, and if you look closely you'll see a series of numbers, and the numbers will either be descending or climbing according to the shape of the landscape. So to give you an example, here is the Chew Valley Lake, okay, and as you would expect, it being a valley, that is going to be one of the lowest points in the entire valley. Quite quickly though, from the shoreline, there is a mass of contour lines quite closely packed together. They're going up in 5s, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100, and they just keep climbing in 5s right the way up until they hit the fort. And there's an old fort up here, or the remnants of an old fortification, at 164 to be precise. That's been measured at. Going back to what I said earlier about each one of these little squares being made up, okay, each one of these is a kilometer from one side to another, from line to line inside. If I were to use this blade of grass and just to pin it with my finger here, okay, that is 1 kilometer, and I just laid that piece of grass from the top of the fort to the water's edge, that is pretty much 1 kilometer exactly, in fact. So if I was to walk from the edge of the waterline up to the top of the fort, that would be 1 kilometer, okay, and then you can work out the meterage and how hard you're going to have to work to climb up to that feature. And that's where your route selection starts to come in, because believe me, you do it a few times and it concentrates the mind, and you think, God, I'm not climbing in a direct line like that again. Hence you start to maybe cross grade up one way, then you come back on yourself, traverse back up again, and you take a much gentler route, although you do a lot more steps. Remember, you're still carrying the same amount of weight. So it's something you've got to weigh up. Route selection is a really important thing, and something that only you at home will be able to judge on the day of the race according to the weather, the terrain and the equipment you're using. To look at the actual compass itself, and today I'm just using a silver Billy Basic compass. This is something that I would advise anyone go and get to begin with, just because it has a lot of information, it has a lot of features on here, including the use of the mighty magnifying glass. You can use that magnifying feature there just to really kind of open up what you're looking at and kind of study, and you'll realize how detailed the map is once you start to look at it through a magnifying glass. So that's quite a helpful tool, as is, if you look here, I have a 1 in 40k closest to the magnifying glass, a 1 in 50k, and then a 1 in 25. Now for this map here, I can lay that 1 in 25 over the top, and what this is going to do is it will very much give me the ability to be able to read very accurately what's going on inside the kilometre grid square I'm working with. What's happened very recently and very excitingly is we are now agonic. It means that for the first time in a very long time, true north and magnetic north are pretty much lined up over the UK, which means I can just point my compass, read the bearing that's on there. I don't need to do anything special to it, especially to then convert it into something I can draw on the map, or I don't need to convert something I've drawn on the map to go from A to B into something particularly special. I don't need to add or subtract any numbers. I'm able to just kind of walk on that bearing. I can just put that bearing into my compass and I can just go. Okay, so that's very, very exciting. And this is actually explained on the map. If you look down here in the corner, okay, so you get technical information here. At the centre of this sheet, true north is 030 east of grid north. So what you've got here is, okay, is grid north. That is the north in which this map has been orientated. So when we look at a map, all maps are orientated north in the way that they've been written. So never eat shredded wheat is going to be nice and simple to explain and understand. Actual true north, the truest north, is technically slightly off to the right there. Okay, so if I was looking at this map, true north is going to be slightly over here. Now the sort of numbers that are involved here are so negligible. They are 0 degrees, 0 degrees, 0.30, 17 and 11. They're so negligible that walking over 500 meters isn't really going to be an issue for me whatsoever. You know, even in fairly featureless terrain, I'm still pretty much, if I've got a set of eyes in my head, going to be able to see what it is I'm trying to walk onto, unless I'm trying to walk maybe between two minefields, in which case, yeah, I'd probably get the GPS out. So having an up-to-date map goes hand in hand with a woodsman is only as sharp as his knife. Having sharp tools to work with always helps and just makes life a lot easier. So this map was produced in 2021. So this is a really up-to-date map. It's really new, and it's going to have the most up-to-date information for me to be able to take guide clients around this massive Chew Valley here. One of the very first fundamental things to do when you're using Map&Compass is to orientate the map to the ground that you're on. So using my compass, just spinning my compass around, stepping away from that Land Rover, holding my compass nice and flat in my hand. When I look at the compass, I can see there's lots of features. I can see there's a luminescent piece at the top here with a little line in it, okay, and that, wherever I stop that dial from spinning, okay, whatever number that is the bearing. And it might not be that it lands exactly on a number. I might have to read and interpret what that is in the middle. And then you'll see there's a little roaming arrow here as well that I can kind of line up with that luminescent piece on the spinning bezel, okay, and I can kind of use those both in pitch darkness to walk on the bearing. These silver ones, that you can read them at night time, and also great that what we call the shed, okay, which is the piece on the inside. If I hold this up to the sky, you can see through there is a red arrow which I can spin this entire bezel around, okay. And what you're looking to do initially is looking to find out where north is, and that arrow is always going to point north, okay. So the red part of the needle is what we're playing with. That is pointing north. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin this round so these two line up perfectly, okay. Now if I know that that's north, and I come over to my map, and at the moment my map is orientated on the Land Rover facing that way, and I know that's north. Well, that's incorrect, isn't it? So I'm going to lay the compass on the map like so, and I'm going to begin to spin the entire map around in the middle of the lake, here we go, in the Chew Valley Lake, until Okay, so I now know that my compass is facing north and my map is orientated north. So the first thing I've done is orientated my map, and it might just be that I'm using one tiny little square here on the map. I'm going to go ahead and fold this map down in just a moment. To be able to read or find anything on this map, I need to know how to learn to read a grid square or a grid reference. So I might get given a series of 6 numbers, usually 6 numbers, which are going to help me find something here on the map. So there is an absolutely beautiful waterfall here. And in actual fact, the waterfall is just inside this little clump of woodland, okay? Now, what I'm going to need to do is work out the numbers that correlate to this grid square, first and foremost. The rhyme to always remember is along the corridor and up the stairs. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to come along the corridor, and then you're going to go up the stairs, and you're going to work out where you are. The first thing I'm going to need to do when I'm going along the corridor and up the stairs is I'm going to need to place the corner of the roamer onto the feature that I want to get to. Okay, in this case is the edge of the waterfall, which is hidden inside that clump of woods. And now I measure from the corner to the left hand edge here, and it's going to tell me that it is 547, and I know that because here is 54. So 54 and 7 grats across is going to get me into this wood block. Now I need to know how far I need to come up. So if I look left or right, it should show me, here we are, I'm on 6-1 is my feature that way. So 6-1. So I need to put that corner on there and count down now on the right hand side of this roamer, 615. So 547, 615 would get me to the waterfall, or could be my start point, or could be my end point, but whatever it is, that's how you use the roamer, which is on the compass, to actually pinpoint certain features within inside the map. Now let's think about being able to walk on a bearing or go somewhere. So first thing I'm going to need to do is find out where I am here on the map, but there is the farmhouse. I don't need to do anything special, okay, if I wanted to walk from that farmhouse right the way up to the pub. So what I could do here is I can find my farmhouse, which is there, use the edge of my compass as a straight line, put a line between me and the pub, like so, okay, put red in the shed, okay, read off what that is 25 degrees basically is going to take me up to the pub. So if I head on over to the farmhouse, stand with my back to the farmhouse, put in my 25 on here, to spin that round so that red is in the shed, I could then walk on that bearing up to the pub by day or by night and would accurately be able to get there without having to mess around with magnetic declination. So I'm not having to add or subtract any numbers in order to stay on my bearing. Isn't that so much easier here in the UK right now? What an absolute nightmare to try and explain all of this stuff. I think what's best is we break this down into a series of vids, because it is a massive meaty subject, and there's about 1 million different tools you can use out there. There's even different types of compass. So today I'm just showing you a basic hiking compass, something you can just walk on a bearing from place to place to. We're going to be looking at some of those little techniques. So back to our paces. The pace beads I carry on my shoulder, as I'll show you in just a moment, every time I hit 100 meters, okay, if I'm going to walk from a place to a place, I can measure that on the map, and then I'm going to know maybe it's 250 meters to the church or wherever it is I've got to go. I know, carrying whatever equipment I'm wearing, so remember, in my kind of heavier attire, I know that that's going to be 63 times 3 times or 2.5 times. So it's going to be 63 plus 63, 120, 126. Okay, and then I'm going to have to add half of 63. All right, let's call it 62. So 31 on top of that. And then in terms of paces, if I was doing that in the pitch dark, that should bring me smack on. But the problem comes when you're doing a leg of maybe 500 meters. Every time you hit 100 meters, how do you kind of register that? Do you maybe pick up another little stone and transfer it from one pocket to the other? Do you want to tie another little knot in something? And that's where the kind of beads come in, like ranger beads, commando beads, whatever you want to call them. All you do on the bead system is you just reach up and pull one down. These beads represent kilometers. I'm never going to do much more than a 3k leg here in the UK. Then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 beads. So every time I do 100 meters and I register that I've walked 62 paces or whatever it is, my 100 meters were in this bag, I pull one bead down, separate it from the rest. And I can pull another one down. Because after 300 or 400 meters, you start to think, oh God, or your mind wanders, or you know, you nearly roll your ankle, whatever it is. You might stop and think, oh God, how far have I gone? I'm not sure. At least this way I can know in the dark. I can just quietly stand there and count and go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm between the 400 and 500 meter mark on my leg. Upon completion of pulling every single one of these beads down, I'd then go, right, so that's 900 meters completed. Upon that last 100 meters, one of these comes down. I know I've done a K. Okay, so 1K is going to look something like that. All the beads are going to get shuffled back up to the top, or I'm just going to carry on, only this time I'm shuffling the back upright, back up to the top. But more often than not, I like to keep to that system of pulling them down, just the way I am. So I'll reset them. It's a really, really simple system. I think it's been around since like the Roman legionnaires. It's been around for an awful long time. And it's just good and simple. It's quiet, it's effective. There's no tactical Velcro opening involved for those of you who saw that video. You can just go ahead and use it, it's quite simple. You couple that with all your natural navigational techniques and what you know about the landscape, okay? And you can see where the kind of, like I said, the kind of wind, the rain and the sun have or haven't been. And what you've got then is quite a deadly combination of super accurate indicators that are going to make sure you stay exactly on track. Couple that with accurate, reliable bearing that you can take with a compass, and you've got yourself something quite formidable.